Well, today's the day that we'll be giving you the report from our conversations with the surgeon, Dr. Saunders, on Friday. So today is February 13th. So we discussed the complexity of the surgery. And here's what it's important to know my backstory so that you know and understand what's going to make this surgery so complicated. So when I was born, according to one of my surgeons, and the other ones all agree, um, I was probably born with a third of my stomach in my chest cavity, which is essentially a hiatal hernia. And as a result of that, I also did not have a sphincter valve at the top, it's like a sphincter valve. It's at the top of your stomach, at the base of your esophagus, where it shuts off your stomach so that food and acid can't just back up into your esophagus. Well, I didn't have that. So basically, my entire life was a life of acid reflux. But because it started when I was an infant, I didn't know the difference. I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. I thought everybody felt the same way as I did. So it wasn't though until I was 46 years old they figured out that I had a real problem. That's when they found out all this stuff about, I was probably born with a hiatal hernia and no valve on top of my stomach and all that kind of stuff. And then we had to start discussing how we're going to fix that. And so the solution was going to be Nissan fundoplasty. Now, I think Nissan fundoplasty technically is the term they use for when they do it laparoscopically. And they did attempt to do mine laparoscopically, but real quick they found out that I wasn't a normal boy. Of course, I was 46 years old when this was going on. So they had to come up with another plan real quick, and they cut me open. The problem was because this had been going on since birth. My esophagus was really short, so they had to they couldn't just pull the stomach down because there wasn't enough esophagus to do that. So what they did was they used my stomach, wrap it around itself, create a valve, and then they moved my stomach from underneath my liver to on top of my liver, and right over by the where the esophagus goes through your diaphragm. They put the stomach right up against my diaphragm, and they sewed my stomach to the abdominal wall. And they actually had to remove my liver, and one of the surgeons had to hold it. And he just felt it was real necessary to share that information. I would have just as soon passed, but there it is. It's out there. Anyways, it makes a good story. Anyway, so we have the Nissan fundoplasty, and where that's hindering us here is two ways. One, my stomach is sewn to my abdominal wall, which has a hernia mesh on it. So my stomach, abdominal wall, and the hernia mesh are all grown into each other. And when they make that valve by twisting the stomach, they use a blood vessel to do that, to feed that, that they would have normally used to feed the replacement the replacement for the esophagus. So in normal situations, what they would do is they would take the stomach, put it up into your chest cavity, roll it up, and stick it in there, and then just completely remove the esophagus and hook the stomach right up to your throat. It'd been a nice, clean operation. That's the way they prefer to do it. Mine, they can't do that. So the next thing is you just take a section of the colon and the sigmoid, and you just swap it out, and you take the esophagus out and put in the chunk of colon. Well, here's another problem. 2006, 3 years after I had my Nissen fundoplasty, I got colon cancer. We found the colon cancer. So they had to do a sigmoidectomy, which is they took 16 inches of my colon out. The 16 inches that they used for that were the 16 inches that they needed to replace my esophagus. So that's the little hiccup there. So that means that now they've got to take my large intestine just right above my right hip. They're going to take it, cut it off, run it up through my chest cavity somehow, and it will connect back up here at the top of the esophagus, and then they will run it gets confusing. I mean, I was confused. So I know that there's 3 resections that they have to make, three different things. So it gets pretty complicated because you're working on the inside of somebody. So I told him straight up that if we do the surgery, when it comes to getting into that large intestine, forget about the hernia mesh, cut right through it, get that thing cut and rerouted as quickly as possible, because you got enough work and there's going to be too much time on the operating table. So I've had a CT scan since the chemo and radiation, and it showed no cancer cells. So that's good. Now we're going to do a PET scan. It's very similar, but it works a little differently, and it can pick up things that the CT scan doesn't pick up. The CT scan can pick up things that the PET scan doesn't pick up. So we're going to do a PET scan, I'm going to guess, because the way everything else has worked, that's going to happen real fast. And we can do that right here in the Tri-Cities. The other thing that we're going to try to schedule and get in is another appointment with Dr. Sucrasia for the endoscopy ultrasound. So, and he's the one that really found, other than Dr. Belcaster, he found the cancer with using the endoscopy. He found it first, and then this Dr. Sucrasia was able to tell about how far and how deep the cancer had penetrated in my esophagus. So we'll do the PET scan, we'll do the endoscopy ultrasound, and I expect those to be done and completed within the next 2 weeks. PET scan, like I say, I would say I'll probably get a call bright and early on Monday morning to schedule that. And then we'll kind of go from there. The two options I have are, the two possibilities are, one, PET scan and the ultrasound show no cancer cells. If that occurs, it'll give us a little bit of information on whether or not to do the surgery. if they do see cancer cells, then we have to make the decision about the surgery. The surgery, anything can happen. But because of all of my previous issues, there's a good shot that it could be a failure too. So these are all things that we have to look at rationally and figure out what the best thing is to do in this particular circumstance. I'd like to say I'm okay either way we go. I kind of am, but I'd really, if I can avoid the surgery, I would just as soon not have 4 of them, because I'm thinking that, if they don't find cancer, I don't really want to do the surgery just as a precaution, because the surgery, regardless, is going to change my lifestyle. If you thought I was disabled before, you wait till after this surgery, then I'll be really disabled. And make that blue card proud on my. I'll probably get a plate. They might just give me a permanent plate. You never can tell. There you go. It's always something to shoot for. Get that license plate with a little wheelchair on it. But if we don't do the surgery, I'm going to have a reasonable amount of time where I feel like I've been feeling. So there you go. Might be able to get a few things done, get this sawmill put together. But anyways, that's about what we know, and I'll throw up another video as soon as we find out something from the PET scan. Okay, so love you guys. Thank you for your prayers, and this is no time to stop. So it's like a full court press. We're gonna have to hit it with everything we got. Okay, so take it easy, guys. And if you subscribe to these things, they'll automatically give you a notification anytime there's a new video up. So, all right, we'll see if this works. Love you. Bye.